Welcome to Keto Life Support, where we make your keto life sustainable, fun, and low stress. I'm Kim Howerton, and I'll be coming to you weekly with some of my keto besties to bring you the practical, real-world keto advice that you need. Quick disclaimer, I am not a doctor, and even if we do have a doctor in the house from time to time, he or she is not your doctor, and nothing we say on this show should be taken as medical advice. Always check in with a trusted medical professional about your own personal medical concerns.
Hello and welcome to Keto Life Support. This is Kim Howerton and I am your host. And I am happy to bring you a little special content today on episode number 131. We are going to be listening to the Q&A sessions from the Proper Human Diet Summit. So the Proper Human Diet Summit was held in September in Nashville, and it's an event put on by Dr. Ken Berry and Nisha Salas-Berry. And I was there with Nurse Cindy. And also we had Autumn from Watch Autumn Keto. We had the two crazy ketos, Joe and Rachel, and we had a great time. And yes, before you ask, they are doing it again. So get ready for next year. If you couldn't go this year, plan to go next year. And these are the Q&A sessions. If you want to see us while we're talking, you can head on over to Keto Chow's YouTube channel. I'll put a link in the notes, and you can actually watch the Q&As as well as the talks put on by Dr. Berry, Nisha, myself, and Nurse Cindy. So if you want to watch those talks, I will give you that link. But today you're getting part one of the Q&A because there were two Q&As. You'll get the second part next week. Enjoy!
All right, let's give it up for our speakers. See, like, the type A personality, like...
Go sit by your woman.
I want you to sit in the order, that I first saw you on stage, right? So, okay. So we have some questions that were on the cards, and some of them were addressed to specific people, but other ones are just for the general panel. So I'll be able to see who wants to take that question. But this first question is for Dr. Berry. If you want to start the BBBE and you're on insulin for diabetes, how do you make sure your sugar won't drop too low?
That's a great question, and you should be very conscientious of that if you're currently injecting insulin, either as a type 1 diabetic or type 2, or if you have LADA. When you start eating a low-carb diet, you can get very low blood sugars very quickly if you're injecting what used to be the right amount of insulin. Now it's way too much insulin. And you can have an hypoglycemic. And so the best, safest way is to find a low-carb friendly doctor who can work with you to help you lower the carbs as you lower the insulin. If there's not a low-carb friendly doctor within 2 hours of you, then you're going to have to find a doctor and say, look, dude, this is what's about to happen. Okay, I'm about to start to lower my carbohydrate intake. I need you to shut up and lower my insulin. Help me. Do I go down 1 unit? Do I go down 5? How do I know? I need you to help me with this because I am going to eat a low-carb diet, a keto diet. That's going to happen. I'm not asking your permission. I'm asking you to manage my insulin as I lower the carbohydrates. Does that make sense? If you're like, I'm not asking for dietary advice, not while I'm here, any doctor who's worth a damn is going to be like, okay, fine, that's going to kill your liver, whatever they say, it's fine. Be like, okay, thank you, doctor, but now what do I need to do with my insulin as I lower the carbs?
Thank you so much. This next question, it's a little sciencey, that's what I like to say. But is it possible with long-term low-carb ketovore, especially, that the A1C might not be a good marker? Could it change the way your liver metabolizes, or are there changes in the ways your liver metabolizes protein?
No.
So the A1C will continue to be a good marker.
So, well, now the part about the liver changing the way it metabolizes protein, that's foolishness. There are a few gurus that are hinting at that sort of thing. That's ridiculous. The human liver has been metabolizing carbohydrates and protein and fats the same exact way as it does in every single one of us for at least 350,000 years.
Yep.
We can all be special snowflakes. That's fine. But when it comes to your physiology, this is a tried and true method that Homo sapiens sapiens been using for a long damn time. That's not going to change. Now, there is something that we're seeing in about 3 to 5% of people on a carnivore diet, and that is that they'll start to have some A1C creep up, even though they're eating very low carbohydrate diet. So there's no way that they're eating the carbohydrates that are causing the glycation. Without getting too sciencey here, your red blood cells carry oxygen, right?
Yeah.
They live about 110 days on average. But remember that number, that 110 days, that was calculated on people who are eating the standard American diet. What happens to a red blood cell if it's built out of really good fats and proteins and all the vitamins and minerals? Is it possible that that red blood cell could live 120 days or 130 days? Yes. And it looks like for some people, their red blood cells are living longer, which gives the red blood cell more time to glycate, which when you check that A1C, which has always been just a proxy marker, that's all it is. It's just been a rough guideline since the 1990s. But now you're getting a false picture because their red blood cells are not living on average 110, they're living 120. That's 10 more days to glycate. So then all of a sudden you've got a 5.7 or a 5.8 and you're like, what the hell? Mm-hmm. I mean, literally eating no carbs except for the glycogen in the muscle. How is that possible? That's got to be what it is, right? And because, as I said earlier, your liver's not changing the way it metabolizes protein. That's not happening. Probably that's what's happening, but we don't know that for sure. I've been talking to Professor Ben Bickman about this for a while, and I'm trying to get him to do some studies with his graduate students, and we're talking about how to best tease that out. Yeah. But that's probably what is happening. But again, there's no danger from that. If you're eating essentially zero carb, there's no way you're going to become a true type 2 diabetic or even pre-diabetic on that way of eating. That's impossible because you're not eating carbohydrate.
As a follow-up question to that, Dr. Berry, what is the fine line between, locking in your nutrition and your diet and knowing what you're eating, but like wanting to get the good numbers out of it? Because could you imagine doing all that work and then seeing that A1C and I've known people, especially with ketones, maybe you're eating ketone or, drinking ketones, doing those things because you want to see those high numbers. Right. What's the balance between the actual nutrition and health versus wanting to see those good numbers?
There's a book you can buy, right?
There's actually a book.
There you go. About the lab.
So this only happens in 3 to 5% of people.
Yeah.
So in 95 to 97% of people, their A1C gets splendiferous, right? Low 5s, high 4s when they're eating essentially zero carb. But if you look at the full metabolic picture, with all the labs that Kim and I talk about in the book, what are your triglycerides? What's your HDL? What are your inflammatory markers, right? What's your homocysteine? What's your ferritin? All these numbers, then when you look at that global picture, you're like, there's no way that this person is developing type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes because their triglycerides are 60 and their HDL is 89. That's got to be an anomaly.
Yeah.
When looking at their fasting insulin and their C-peptide also
Yes.
really tell you, because if they were
100%.
truly becoming more diabetic, those things would drift.
100%. And when you put a continuous glucose monitor on those people, their blood sugars are pristine, yet they've got this slightly elevated A1C. That's only 3 to 5% of people that we're currently seeing. I've been talking to Dr. Sivas about this, Dr. Baker about this, and Ben Bickman about this. And some people are talking about it more than others. I like to focus on the 95%, right? Because that's where I can do the most good. But other people who are more perhaps academic minded, they're like really fascinated by that 3%. Like, why the hell are they doing that? And we need to have both kinds of people so that we can tease out all these answers so we're never blindsided.
Those of you that are like glycate, what's glycate? I haven't heard that. I want you to think about the red blood cell Dr. Berry was talking about as a bus. And its job is to transport oxygen, as well as other things it does, but mostly oxygen. And oxygen gets on the bus, it gets off the bus. It gets on the bus, we oxygenate when we breathe in, we breathe out carbon dioxide, that's waste products. What's interesting about sugar's tricky because it's so sticky. Remember that. And so it has an affinity for protein. If you've ever given a kid a lollipop and they've fallen asleep on it, what happens when they put their head up? It's stuck. Because it has an affinity for protein. So when you have sugar in your bloodstream, decent, excellent blood sugars, or high, it sticks to part of the red blood cell. It does not get off until the red blood cell dies. So that's glycation. Glycation, that stickiness, causes inflammation. So when they take a snapshot at 100, that's why your doctor does an A1C every 90 days, because you've got brand new ones, you've got the oldest ones, and I really like that theory about they might be living just even 8% longer. That means you have older ones that have continued to have glucose stick to it. And hemoglobin A1C, they look at the hemoglobin molecule and they say, look how many sugar, 5.4, 10.8. So they're looking sort of at a percentage. So sugar's tricky because it's sticky. And that's what glycation is. And that's one of the reasons our inflammation goes down. And that's what I'm talking about in Louisville, is about the metabolic dysfunction and how we can change our health.
And I can't wait to see you there. Keto Palooza happening September 30th in Louisville, Kentucky. Just 2.5 hours up the highway if you want to come join us. We'll pretty much all be there.
Keep in mind, there's a perfect A1C is not 0.
No, you have to
even if your blood sugar is 60 to 79, like literally that's your range, you're still going to have an A1C of 4.8, 4.9, 5.1, 5.2. That's optimal, ideal right there. So even physiologically normal blood sugars still glycate the red blood cells. So glycation in and of itself, up to a point, is a normal, natural. I sound like the dad off American.
It's normal and natural what you're doing.
It's natural and normal, right? But that's normal for you to have some degree of glycation, just not too much.
Absolutely.
I'm going to put sugar's tricky because it's sticky on a shirt. So next time you see me, I'll be wearing that. So yes. Okay, so the next question, and I'll throw this to Kim Howerton and Nurse Cindy. How do you get a spouse or partner on board, especially one that believes that saturated fat is evil and sugar is okay for kids?
Go.
You want to go ahead?
No, you go. I'll tell you.
Okay, so I have a non-keto partner in my life. He is a very healthy person. Like, he does his own thing. And when I went keto, I said, I'm going to do this thing and I need your support. And he said, I'm totally behind you. And I made no moves to change him because I needed all of my efforts and attention on myself. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how many of you in long-term relationships put all your attention on them so you don't have to worry about yourself because you're used to that. Maybe some moms in the audience might know that one. And I said, I'm going to need your support. And he said, you've got it. And so I said, I don't mind if you have this, this, and this in the house because I don't like those things, even though I don't eat them. But I will eat this, this, and that. So can we not have that in the house? And he was like, sure. And so we only have crappy food that I don't like, that I don't eat, right? And I mean, we have good food. I meant, I didn't want things that would call my name late at night, right, from the pantry.
How many of us does that food just call you from the pantry? Like, and that's a beautiful thing, and not to interject, but that was, the keto community was the first place where I would ever hear people speak like that, because you walk through life alone thinking, you're like, how is everyone else not hearing this? Or like, how is everyone else not thinking about food the whole time? When you find a group of people, they're like, no, we are. It was. And I was like, I'm not alone. That's the biggest benefit from something like this. You might learn something, from the speakers, but the biggest thing is just realizing you're not alone. And so when I heard someone say the food calls to me, I was like, finally. So just know you're not alone. But so I just want to interject
and then the other thing because part of that question was, what if they think you're killing yourself, right? And I would say to them, if my partner, I would say, like, we're together because you see something in me, hopefully, right? You trust me. You think I'm smart, right? Right?
There's only one answer.
Right? And like, could you trust me here? Could you just give me some trust? Because I'm going to do what I think is best. And if things are really going off the rails, I trust you to say, hey, I'm afraid for you. Not I know better than you, but I'm afraid for you. And can we talk about it? Yeah. Because just like your diet isn't a wedding, it's a marriage. Your marriage is a marriage, and you're going to have to work some things out. You're not going to agree about everything, and you need trust between you. And if you haven't had that conversation before, like, I know when I started keto, I didn't actually talk about it much because I just had a history of so many promises and so much failure. Mm-hmm. I'm doing this, I'm not doing this, I'm doing, nope. And so I just said, like, I'm trying something and I could use your support, but I didn't tell them, like, I'm doing, I was like, hey, I'm trying something out. And getting them on your team, no matter what, is really important. But I think one of the mistakes a lot of people make is they tell their partner they have to do it with them. And I think my method in the world is to be the lighthouse, not the foghorn, right? I'm going to be the example
That's a good
that
one.
people can look
That's a shirt.
towards,
That's a shirt.
not the voice in their ear telling them they're doing everything wrong, right? And ultimately, that has been a winning strategy for me. And now he, eats more like I do because that's what we have. But yeah.
Well, Dr. Barry will be able to tell you I'm married to a Polish cowboy, right? And there's not many of them around. And he's a big, tall guy. He can out-eat probably 3 of you together, but he'd had a stent put in his heart, so it was the chicken breast, boneless, skinless chicken breast, that he would then pick off any remnants of fat. It was the quinoa for breakfast and the blueberries. And I had been on and on. This is the smallest I've ever been in my entire life. My first memory, thank you, in first grade was weighing 98 pounds. And back in the early 60s, that was so uncommon. So he had been through so many diets with me, and when I told him what I was going to do, first off, I didn't need to ask his permission. I was an adult, but here's what he said. All right. That's how he talks. It's how he talks, right? Right, Nisha? All right. There's never going to be bacon in this house, though. Now, we have decisions in life. What are we willing to, all right? And I looked at him, I said, all right. Because I travel for a living. I educate on wound care. And I thought, okay, I'm on the road more than I'm home. No bacon in the house, that's good. But as I continued to not last more than 2 weeks on the keto diet, on the proper human diet, I also became more enthused as I learned what it was doing. What I had been trying, that eat less, move more, count your points, all that stuff. One day he looks at, and I ate a lot of bacon when I was on the road. He looked at me one day, he's like, well, I guess we could have some bacon in the house if it's nitrate free and you're gonna cook it. And I'm like, all right. Make a very long story short, a couple months later, because I always would take a cup of bacon with me on the airplane, because I was intermittent fasting, and I'd pop it open after we reached 30,000 feet, and I'd start crunching it. I like mine crunchy. And people around me would be going, I'd wave. Didn't offer anyone any. But anyway, one day I'm getting ready to leave I'm trying to get ready to go to the airport, and I said, oh, I forgot my bacon, I forgot to fry it. And he goes, well, I guess I could fry it for you. And he did. And the next step was he fried up a bunch for me, and the next time now I started to forget all the time, so I didn't have to fry it. And he said, this smells mighty good. And I'm like, I'm gonna go hop in the shower, have some. I came back after, there were 2 pieces. So, all that to say, be patient. The foghorn, not the foghorn, the love it, gotta steal it. And he is now, I told him the other day, if you ask me one more time if I make you a keto treat, is it sugar-free? I said, there has not been sugar in this house in 6 years, but he's my biggest supporter. He eats keto. He's the healthiest he's ever been. He doesn't worry about his stent because he knows that fat that we eat, is not what causes, anyway, long story, but you got to meet him one day. I can't get him on the video, though. He won't come on the videos.
You do a good impression.
Yeah, he's my cowboy.
I think Dr. Barry says a lot. Like, the best thing that you can do is just be the example,
Yes.
right? As much as the proper human diet has shown the light on, oh my gosh, now we know, now we can see, and you see your loved ones continue to be in the dark. It can be so frustrating and be, just angering, and it can be scary, but the best thing you can do is just continue to be that lighthouse. You be the picture, because, they're watching, whether they tell you or not, they're watching. And so eventually, I think, Nurse Cindy said, just be patient. Yeah. But yeah, I understand that struggle. The next question is for Nisha.
Good.
So new Hashimoto diagnosis. I know food reactions differ for everyone, but are there some foods to avoid initially while I figure things out?
Sugar. Right. So sugar is the main one, obviously. Grains, wheat, dairy, nuts. It depends on where are you? How miserable are you with your Hashimoto's? How miserable are you? because that's where the change happens. It's just like any other rock bottom. You got to hit it to say it's enough. I've lost everything.
Yeah.
I don't have my life. I want these things. I'm willing to give up what I think I know to find out what I don't know, and make these changes and take out all of these foods and really get down and figure out, because Hashimoto's gets, so like for me, if you watch my YouTube channel, you can see I eat some things that many say I should not eat because I have Hashimoto's, but I did the work. I did the N=1, and I know that for me, those things are okay sometimes, but some things are not. Like almond flour, I have maybe once a year on Thanksgiving because I make my keto cornbread that has no corn in it. And that's it. Because almonds really do inflame me and cause me pain. But I can have a little dairy and some kinds of cheeses and things like that. So I can't tell you exactly what you can't have, but I can tell you how to find out. So just do the elimination diet, do the carnivore, and just put the work in. And it sounds like you're doing a good job, so.
Yeah.
The next question for anyone on the panel, can you do OMAD every day, or can that become bad for you?
I think there's a lot of different opinions on this, and I think the answer to almost every question can be, well, it depends.
Yes.
I will say that in the demographic that I work with, the people I work with, this is a little controversial, but I think that they tend to lose weight better in the long term when they eat more than OMAD most of the time. I do think that in certain circumstances, especially when you're dealing with a lot of inflammation or other types of health issues that are improved from you eating fewer times. But I deal with a lot of people with food addiction issues, and this is not true of everybody. Every tool can be used well, and every tool can be used poorly.
Yes.
I see a good number of people using OMAD to continue their binge mindset and not healing their relationship with nourishment, as opposed to their opportunistically arranging their life to not have to heal their eating disorder. Again, that's not everybody. So I think OMAD is a tool. I don't think it's a tool for everyone, and I don't think it's a tool for all situations. And I know Megan Ramos, who is a big proponent of fasting, has found, I don't know if she's updated this, but I have heard her say several times that in their practice that OMAD isn't necessarily the best approach even for weight loss. So.
Yeah. So if the only reason that you're overweight is that you have chronic hyperinsulinemia, you have no emotional relationship with food whatsoever, you have no past trauma, life has just been wonderful, then OMAD is going to predictably work because it puts your insulin very low for many hours a day. But what percentage of the population who's currently obese did my previous scenario apply?
Not me.
0?
Not me.
Right. And so I think OMAD is a tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
And if you take a hammer and smash the shit out of that glass door, that's an improper use of that hammer. Even though it's a good hammer, right? But that's
Very
not
effective hammer.
Yeah, that's not the proper use for that hammer. So I think OMAD does play a very definite role for many people in many situations at certain points on their journey, but the vast majority of us have got emotional stuff, we've got other hormone stuff, we've got stuff. We got stuff. And so, especially with previous eating disorders, OMAD's probably not something, you don't need that hammer. You need something more delicate and more nuanced than OMAD. But I do think for some people it's an amazingly powerful tool, but you can also smash a window with it, so you have to be careful.
And I didn't do well on it personally. I felt irritable, and I don't think when Robert Sykes and I started working together to increase my calories, because over time, trying to get off that 18-month stall, I had, without really thinking of it, gotten down to the point that my body thought it was in a very mild starvation, so you slow your metabolism down. And I can't eat enough calories in a couple-hour window for me to get in enough protein. At my age, once you're 60, probably 55 and older, we don't assimilate protein like the young do.
Yes.
It sort of goes to waste, if you will.
Yep. So in
OMAD's
people over a certain age,
Yeah.
OMAD's probably not for you. 60, 65, somewhere in there, the protein absorption starts to really not be as efficient.
Mm-hmm.
But then also if you've had any kind of gastric surgery, bariatric surgery, OMAD's not for you. You
just
don't
not
have a
getting
big enough pouch to hold enough food, to get enough nutrition, which is what eating is all about. So in those two situations, definitely not. Previous eating disorder, probably best to avoid it. And then probably some other situations as well.
I want to add my 2 cents in about that, because just like Kim said, I realized that I was using OMAD as a tool to just give myself permission to eat as much as I could or needed to, because hey, this is the only time I'm eating today, so I could go all in. But then I started to realize that the huge amount of food was the only thing that I was considering a meal. Like if I were to have a normal portioned meal, I would say, well, this is half as much as I would normally eat, right? And so I found myself not thinking that a proper proportion of food was correct, because I was giving myself permission to eat these large portions every time I sat down. So I couldn't do OMAD for too long. And then I learned at all the conferences that I've been to this year, my goals have changed recently in getting in the gym and building muscle and lean mass. And I want to impress Robert Sykes over there, but I learned about muscle protein synthesis, right? And about how eating protein at specific times will trigger that process to build that lean mass in your body. And you want to stimulate that multiple times a day. So if you just eat once, you're only stimulating that building process once. Whereas if you eat twice, you're stimulating that twice. And so I've had to do a lot of thinking around, what the benefit of fasting versus, overeating versus if my goals are to build muscle, I have to start eating in a different way. So that's a good question, something to think about. How can I best talk to my doctor about the proper human diet in my health journey? I think we kind of addressed this, but how can I best talk to my doctor?
I usually go in soft, right? Like
I don't even talk about it.
I think it's important to start with things they will approve of. Hey, I've cut refined sugars out of my diet. That's great. Okay, now I'm going to go one more layer in, right? I also stopped eating like junk food and fast food and highly processed food. That's amazing. And when they stop complimenting you, you can just leave it there.
Yeah.
But occasionally they'll surprise you. Like I once went to a doctor and said that, and they said, well, are you getting plenty of healthy fats? And I was like, well, this is a doctor I should see again, right? So I think it's important not to use scary words that they don't understand, like you understand, but instead...
Which is a shame.
It is a shame.
You have to babysit your doctor.
It is a shame, but sometimes the K word or the carnivore word might be scary. And
triggers them.
Never lie to your doctor, but also you can introduce it in a positive light, which they may never have heard it explained before.
That's what I love about the proper human diet that Dr. Barry and Nisha have coined, is because this is how our ancestors lived. It's only been in the last 40 to 60 years that all of these uber-processed frankenfoods, they're food-like substances, have been introduced to the human body, and it's destroying us.
But especially if you have certain diagnoses like Hashimoto's, if you walk into your provider and you say what Kim said, I've given up sugar and wheat and processed foods, and I'm eating healthy proteins and fats, well done, you.
Yes.
Keto, it's gonna kill your thyroid.
Yeah. It's gonna kill you.
Don't do that. Just don't ever even, no. Which is just, it's lost in translation. They don't know what keto means.
Yep.
They have only heard these horror stories from people who really weren't doing keto. They were basically starving themselves and over-exercising and doing the diet culture bad things that they brought from the standard American diet and projected onto keto. That's not what we're here for. We're not telling you to starve yourself. We're not telling you to undereat for weeks at a time so that you can lose weight. We're telling you to just eat real food. It's not this scary thing that it has been made out to be, and that a lot of doctors are just, they don't want to hear it. Once you tell them that word, they stop listening to you. So if you come at it like Kim said, I'm eating real food, healthy protein, healthy fats. I don't eat processed sugar. How can they argue with that, really? They just can't.
So, Dr. Berry, something you just mentioned. I recently had gastric sleeve procedure and have received conflicting nutrition information from the doctor and the nutritionist. I was told by the nutritionist that I should watch my fat intake. I am at a complete loss of how I should be eating. Any suggestions?
Yeah, so the reason you're eating is for nutrition, for amino acids, fatty acids, vitamins, minerals. That's why you're eating. So you want to eat foods because you don't have much space anymore because they chopped it out and threw it in the garbage. Now you have this tiny little pouch left. You only want to put nutrient-dense foods in there. And you're not going to be able to do Omad. You're going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meals a day, whatever. If you want to time restrict that, you can. It's not necessary. But you only want to eat things that your body can use to build and repair with. That's all you want to eat. You've got no room in that tiny pouch for bullshit. Does that make sense? Okay, so then let's talk about fat for just a second. Most doctors, most dietitians, most people think that fat is just fuel. You have to burn that up or you'll store it on your butt. But our body uses fat to build hundreds and hundreds of things, from the cell membrane to the myelin sheath. Every cell in your body, trillions of cells, need fat to build that cell membrane in a healthy fashion. You're making hormones out of fat and cholesterol. You're using fat. So we all know that we build with protein. We know that. But so many people, maybe somebody in this room is sitting there right now going, we build shit out of fat? I did not know that. I thought we just had to burn it or store it. No, your body uses that. So nutrient density is about building and repairing. Healthy proteins and healthy fats. Adequate protein, yes, Robert Sykes, but also adequate fat. Those two things are mandatory. And along with them, if you're getting healthy fat and healthy protein from a proper human diet, you're also going to be getting lots of vitamins and minerals, which you need.
The fat to actually help you absorb a lot of those.
Oh, that's an interesting.
Fat-soluble vitamins.
That's interesting. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have fat with the vitamins, there are a lot of fat-soluble vitamins. And your hormones also don't work so good.
No.
Yet another thing that we need healthy fat for.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. And Dr. Robert Sykes just switched all of his bariatric surgery patients over to the Keto Chow shake, because at first, after that type of surgery, your pouch is not at all stretched out, and they use such high quality vitamins and minerals in their blend that he switched them all over instead of the regular berry. It's very, very common to use a shake for a period of time, even as a supplemental meal, because you can't get enough in that pouch, as Dr. Berry said. So if any of you are struggling with that or not having enough because you can't hold enough solid food for a period of time, I encourage you to talk to the folks at Keto Chow.
But this problem I actually hear about quite a bit, because in practices, a lot of bariatric surgeons are actually on board with keto, but their nutritionists aren't always in the office.
They get in trouble.
And it's challenging in that place. And I would always say, go back to the doctor and say, hey, I'm getting conflicting information from your nutritionist from what you told me. Can you help me? Because you shouldn't have to fix that. They should fix that in their office, but it's your responsibility because it's your body.
Yeah, that's an excellent ninja maneuver because guess who's going to win that?
Yeah, hopefully the doctor will.
That's a good point. It's your responsibility. It's your body. Sure, got it. Okay, Kim, so I have a question.
Yes.
What is the best way to approach maintenance after reaching a healthy weight?
Well, first, congratulations. That's
Congratulations.
awesome.
Yes.
And I would say, I think the first thing to look at is actually to go kind of internal and ask yourself, like, what are the behaviors that helped me to lose this weight? What's the mindset? How did I do it? And is that going to serve me or not in this next phase? Because there are some behaviors that help us, like some people are like super goal focused, and like it's their number one goal and they're going to do it, and they like really do a great job at getting there, but they kind of didn't listen to the softer, quieter parts of their person before that's in the background saying, but we like this other thing. Like, you didn't kind of deal with some of those emotions along the way.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of clients who this happens to. They get to the end, they've lost the weight, they've been like, I'm just fixed on the goal. I'm just goal-oriented, I'm hyper-focused. And they never learned to like just really be truly nourished. And then they regain a lot of the weight. So it's good to think about, how do I want to be in maintenance? And then, use some tools like, it doesn't have to be the scale. It could be a pair of pants that actually fit. It could be some metric that you can use to double check that you're still staying on track in terms of like, have I gained some weight back? And you want to notice that before it's an insurmountable issue that you have to reclaim that weight loss. But I think it's important. It's not, you know how to eat, right? I think you just have to look for the dark holes that you might fall in along the way because you didn't deal with some part of your psyche in the weight loss journey that might come and get you. Because there is this thing that happens, right? Especially food addicts, and you could, it's a spectrum.
Carboholic.
Dopamine is a huge part of that, right? We crave the food, we think about the food, we plan the food, we get the dopamine hit. Weight loss is its own dopamine hit. So you have transferred your addiction from the food to the weight loss. And so one of the huge risks I find is, maintenance is boring. It's just life. You don't have that same dopamine hit, that the inner part of you that's seeking that change, that, nobody's like, good job, you're still lean, right? It's like you stop getting some of the accolades, you stop getting that fix, that hit, and you've got to be prepared for that. This is the boring part. It's supposed to be boring. Other parts of your life are supposed to be interesting, not your weight. So, know that maintenance is actually its own challenge.
Yeah. I would just real quick say, know yourself. I truly have a shirt. It says recovering carboholic. I lived for those sugar hits. And so when people say to me, Cindy, do you ever take a cheat day? No. Might have strawberries. Why? Because I'm scared. I'm scared that if I have a piece of cake at somebody's party, it will be the last time you'll ever see me, because we were talking about this last night. It's just, my life is so full now. It's full. I'm not restricted. When people say it's too restrictive, no, it's freedom. It is freedom. And we never say to an alcoholic, boy, you've been sober for a year now. Let's go out and celebrate. Do we say that to them if we love them? No. So many of us cannot risk, and as you lose weight, your rate of the fat loss will typically slow. You won't lose as much. When I had 94 pounds to lose, it was a faster rate per month than it is now. That's okay. So you're sort of sliding into maintenance.
Yeah. And some people do just slide right on into it. I think it's important, though, that we don't talk about maintenance anywhere near enough in this culture. And I think it's really important because we are a diet and binge culture, and maintenance is actually the healthy way to live, and we need to focus more on that.
Yep, that's good.
That's such a good point. It's boring. Like, that's what I had to realize. It's supposed to be boring. Like, it was the
My
point when
steak last night was not boring.
Oh, I mean,
That was awesome.
yeah,
Sorry.
no, it was delicious. But that's what I realized when you're looking to food for that excitement. I remember hearing you say that, Dr. Barry. Like, food should be a nice, exciting part of your life. It shouldn't be the only thing that brings you excitement. It shouldn't be the sole source of that. And so I remember even my own feelings changing toward food of like, oh, it's just food. Like, it's just fuel. It's honestly just the building blocks of like what I need to survive. And it's like this, it's not this sole source of joy and enjoyment. And there's like a gap there, something you need to fill in order to get that feeling, because we've, whether we realize it or not, we've been looking at food to do that for us for a very long time. This question for Nisha: fave kids' lunches and snacks.
So for us, we've just kept it really simple from the very beginning. Beckett's first food was a rib. He literally cut his teeth on it. So me and Ken would order ribs from Jim and Nick's right down the road, and we would eat what we wanted. There'd be remnants left over, We'd put it down. He's 4 months old, by the way, when this started. He could sit up, he could grab, and he could put in his mouth. We did baby-led weaning, but we didn't do baby-led weaning nutrition. We did our own. But we followed the guidelines to make sure that we were doing it safely. And so that's where he started, rib bones. And then scrambled eggs, and some avocado, and sausage, and bacon, and steak. And you know, he didn't choke one time.
He did not die.
He didn't die.
And he's so smart.
And still to this day, that is what he wants to eat. And we have been to many birthday parties where there is cake and pizza. Do you know what he wants to do at these birthday parties? He wants to play. He doesn't care about that cake. That's not the fun part.
Tell him what he
His
says.
friends, that's his fun part.
He's like, I don't need to eat too much cake or...
It'll give me the squirty poops.
He said what?
Because I don't tell him you can't have that. I explain these foods make us feel good, and these foods sometimes don't. And it's not that one is evil. It's just that our bodies are made to function with the real stuff. And the sugar may taste good in the moment, but then what happens after? And so he had, I don't even remember where we were. He had, Disney World. Yeah.
Yes.
Disney World. He had his first treat because my mom and dad got it for him, and I was not going to take it away from him in the middle of Disney World. No, thank you. And so he ate a Mickey ice cream, and hours went by, and he was fine until he was not.
Yep.
And he remembers that. He remembers that experience. So I don't have to monitor him. He understands how his body reacts to steak, and he understands how it reacts to crap. And so Bonnie's the same way. We'll just start introducing real foods. Now, we did introduce some peanut butter because we didn't want him to have an allergy early on, so we did that. Yes. And he has cashews, and he has strawberries. Like, we don't force him to eat real food. He has grown up around real food, and he loves it. So, but it's a lot harder when you haven't started from the beginning. Yes. So for a lot of moms, what I tell them is find your kid's pain point. And what that means is, like, is your daughter or son into sports? They really want to be good at sports? Then show them an example of an athlete who is feeding their body real food, fueling their body with real food. Robert is a good example. Someone that they can look up to for that pain point. If they're a nerd, they're a geek, which is awesome. Like, I hope my son does not want to play sports at all. But if they are into video games and stuff, be like, when you're running on ketones, you are awesome on that. It's like, so just good. Whatever their thing is they're into, give them a good motivator, because that's what they're going to listen to. They're not going to listen to you saying, pizza's bad for you, because they don't want to, they don't care.
How do you feel about fruit
16.
juices, Nisha? How do you feel about fruit juices?
Fruit juices, it's a no-go.
Thank you.
It's a no-go because there's nothing in that. There's nothing in that. Has he had fruit? Absolutely. He's had fruit at my mom's house, but he has never, ever had juicy juice or anything like that, because there's nothing attached to that at all. And he still, if I give him a choice, and we always do, he's going for the steak every time.
And Nisha, this is as a person that doesn't have children, but has is always interested in how the standard American, how society has conditioned us. What are your view on snacks, like meals versus snacks, and how children are taught to look at, when and how to eat?
Well, children are much different than us. They are growing rapidly depending on what age they are at. So 0 to 1, Bonnie snacks all day long. Okay, that kid eats around the clock. Is that bad? No, it's appropriate for her age. And then 2 to 4, same thing. They're gonna have to eat more around the clock. An adolescent boy is starving all day long. So the thing isn't that they're snacking, it's what are they snacking on? Are they snacking on Doritos, or are they snacking on something that is got nutritional value. So for kids, I think snacks are totally fine. They're hungry.
Yep.
If Becky comes to me and says I'm hungry, I'm not going to go, well, you can't have
Your
a
eating
snack.
window, Becky.
It's not time.
Humans don't snack, right? It's adults. We don't need to do that, right? We know how to eat an entire meal. We get hungry, we can feed ourselves. So
Because in adulthood, we only grow in one direction.
right. That's very true.
T-shirt, shirt.
And I also think using the keto products as tools to bridge that gap is totally appropriate.
Yeah.
Because when you have these kids that have been raised to have Doritos, and then all of a sudden you who gave them the Doritos are saying, no more Doritos, that's not going to go over so well. But if you're like, hey, here's a better version, give them a try, and let me know how you like them, more often than not, they don't mind that. It's you gave it to me, now you say I can't have it? That doesn't make sense. It just doesn't.
Yeah,
So
until they have a job and they can go to the grocery store
Right.
themselves, the 4 and 5-year-old, they can't buy that. So it won't be easy for a while,
Right.
but it can happen.
And there are good recipes and stuff, but you can put your foot down too. You can just be like, look, do you have a job?
Have alternates for
No.
them.
Okay, then I guess you eat what you eat. You get what you get, you don't throw a fit. You can go that route too. But if you can afford the option to get the alternative, then I don't think they're bad.
Okay, our last question before we break, Science-y, Dr. Berry, why would daily mineral drops and/or iodine cause heart palpitations?
They probably wouldn't. But with that being said, what very often happens is the contractility of the human heart is very tightly controlled by electrolytes and minerals. Okay? Sodium, chloride, potassium, magnesium, calcium, all these things are intimately related with how contractile the human heart is. Now we got to talk about the definition of a palpitation. Just because you feel your heart beating, that is not a palpitation. And most people who just reported palpitations to me, when I say that to them, they're like, oh, well, never mind that. Okay, a palpitation is a potential sign of pathology. Something's wrong. Either the heart rate that you're feeling is irregular or there's something abnormal about it. Now, it's very common when you've been depleted in minerals and electrolytes, when you start to become replete with those and top your tanks off, that you can your cardiac output will actually go up and you'll have a more firm cardiac contraction.
Yep.
Now, some people can't feel their heartbeat at all. I'm one of those people. I cannot feel it, okay? Years ago, I put myself on the EKG at the clinic, and I was having a PVC about every 2 or 3 minutes. I'd have a PVC. Cannot feel that. It's a premature ventricular contraction. It's just an extra heartbeat that doesn't serve any useful purpose. But that was probably when I was 40, completely normal. As a doctor, I knew that, but if I had not been a doctor and saw that, I'd been like, what the
Yeah.
Right?
If Dr. Berry was like, you're having PVCs, you'd be like, oh my God.
Right.
What does that mean?
And so that's an abnormal beat, but it's still not pathology. It's totally fine to have, as a 50-year-old, it's totally fine to have 2 or 3 PVCs a minute.
Yeah.
It's meaningless. But if you're not a healthcare provider, you don't know that. And so you all of a sudden, you start to feel your heart beating, which some people can feel. Some people cannot feel that. It just depends on if you have sensory innervation around your pericardium. Some people do, some people don't. But now you can feel your heart beating, whereas before you couldn't feel it beating, because before it was this half-ass beat because you didn't have the cardiac output. Now you've got all the electrolytes and minerals, your heart's beating properly, basically, but now you can feel it. Now, if you've ever felt your heartbeat before, you're like, what the... Right? But that's not pathology. And so it's very easy to get off in these convoluted, cloudy, murky woods. And you're like, I don't know. I couldn't feel my heart, then I could feel my heart. I don't know. I went and saw my doctor, and my doctor said, keto will kill you. And then I said, I just quit keto because I don't know what the hell happened there. But I don't even know. You see how quickly convoluted that can get? There is no mechanism by which, if you have normal kidney function, that you can take enough minerals or electrolytes to make your heart go into an arrhythmia, which is an actual pathological. If I start an IV on you, I can give you enough potassium. I can make your heart clock out.
Yeah.
Same for magnesium, same for sodium, same for chloride, same for calcium. But by mouth, you're either going to get the shits, you're going to throw up, you're going to pass out so you can't, you're going to do something. Your body's not going to let you take in enough of this by mouth. Now, if you took the Keto Chow Daily Minerals and just drank the entire bottle.
So I was going to say dilute it a little bit
After
more.
you had given yourself a 50 milligram Finnegan suppository so that you blunt your, right?
Yep.
Yeah, maybe, technically, but just using it as Chris Baer recommends it, no, it's not going to happen. You're not going to create any pathology by doing that.
And I wouldn't take them first thing in the morning. If you feel your heart racing a little bit, which might be how you define palpitations, if you've ever had a sugar rush, you know that sugar can make your heart rate go up for a temporary. But if you're drinking those pretty concentrated, dehydrated, because you've been asleep all night, I would just encourage you to dilute it, go down on your dose and split it if you're having anything that causes you to be concerned.
It's unnecessary to take the whole dose at one time.
Spread
I think a lot of people think you have to, and it tastes horrible.
Yeah.
And may cause you to throw up.
The magnesium.
And for the record, Tisha and I never take the mineral drops as the dose.
Right.
We have the little bottle, and I'll put 15 or 20 drops in this cup of coffee and that glass of water on my steak. We use it through the course of the day, just like humans ancestrally would have gotten minerals as they drank from this stream, as they ate that rabbit, as they whatever, they would have gotten their minerals over the course of the day, and that's how we use the drops as well.
Is there a link in the chat for those on the live stream? Yay! Thank you, Rachel. I knew she was there for that. So if you're interested in Daily Mineral Keto Chow drops, there's a link in the description for that. Thanks to Keto Chow.
All right, and thanks to the panel, yes. All right, let's give it up for the panel.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Keto Life Support. Want more information? Want show notes? Want to suggest a topic? Just head over to ketolifesupport.com. That's where all that kind of thing can go on. By the way, I have a request. If you could go to your podcast host and hit subscribe, we would really, really appreciate it. And what would be even more awesome is if you could write a review. And what would be even more awesome than that is if you could write like a really flattering review. Just asking, you do you. All right, so thanks so much for joining us. I'm thrilled that you're part of the Keto fam.